Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to Paduman. Today we have with us Professor Dr. Ahmad. He is the Dean of the Faculty of Islamic Revealed Knowledge and Human Sciences at the International Islamic University here in Malaysia. He was the Deputy Vice Chancellor of the International Islamic University, Islamabad, also where he has played a prominent role since the very founding of the university. Professor Ahmad, welcome to our program. Today our subject of discussion is Shahada, that is the declaration of faith. Now, the declaration of faith is very important in so many ways, not only in our faith but in any faith. Now, if that is the case, then a few questions arise. And before we go to those questions, it is well understood that among the 5 pillars of Islam, declaration of faith or Shahada is the first one. The question arises, why is it first? Is it in terms of its priority or something else?
Thank you very much. I think before we come to the question of priority, we must understand what's the meaning of Shahada. The term Shahada in Arabic means bearing witness. Therefore, a person who goes to a law court and bears witness to an incident is known as Shahid. A person who contributes by his actions and evidence that he is a real believer to the extent that he ultimately sacrifices his whole life for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we call him Shaheed. Shahada, in other words, will mean bearing witness or being an evidence, trying to stand for something. Now, this means that Shahada is not a mechanical activity. This means Shahada is not an unconscious activity, because you cannot bear witness, you cannot stand for something unless you know what you are doing. If you go to a law court and you are half drunk, if you go to a place and you are drowsy, nobody will accept you as a witness, which means you have to be in the best mental state of fitness. You have to be aware of what you are doing. And when someone says, I declare Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one and only creator of universe, and Sayyidina Muhammad ﷺ is his true and final messenger with full awareness, that's what we call Shahada. So Shahada means stating two realities, that this world is not something abrupt and mechanical, that my life is not mechanical. Since the world is not abrupt, I must recognize and declare that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is alive and present. He is guide, He is nourisher, He is protector. And since my life is not mechanical, I should bear witness that best way of doing things is to follow the example of the perfect human being, alayhi salatu wassalam, the Prophet of Islam. Which means Shahada consists of these two declarations. But suppose I am reading a book and I am a non-Muslim and I am very much convinced about Islam, and I read this statement somewhere in the book. Does it make me a Muslim? Well, Islamic approach is, even when you are not reading a book on Islam, but you are following the way Allah has prescribed for all human beings, you are already half Muslim. Because the Quran says, this universe and many other things, when they are following the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which has been charted for them, then they are all Muslims. Which means even a non-Muslim may not realize, but to some extent he or she is already Muslim. But what makes Shahada important is conscious declaration. Someone may be unconsciously Muslim, living a very good pious life. Many non-Muslims are very honest. Many non-Muslims are very punctual. Many non-Muslims observe their obligations. In all those respects they are Muslim. But when they do it consciously, when they declare it by their word and action, only then they become Muslim. Now coming to your first point, indeed, Shahada is placed there in terms of priority. Suppose I want to make prayer, but I have not declared my Shahada. Prayer will be more or less a kind of yoga for me, because I am bowing down, standing up, sitting for certain time. It will look like a yoga. But if I have declared that I am a conscious servant of Allah, then prayer becomes my serving Him. Then prayer has a new dimension, a new meaning. That's why throughout the Quran, when the Quran talks about Iman or declaring that you are a believer, it follows immediately by saying your Iman means you must involve yourself in submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, accepting Him as your only Lord, as your only Creator, by bowing down to Him, reminding yourself consciously, not once a week, but 5 times a day. Not once in a year, but 5 times a day, that He has given you so many gifts and blessings. So you must respond to it by way of accepting a responsible life, living as He wants you to live. That links Shahada together with our contemporary living.
So then Shahada is really the conscious choice. And then once one has made that choice, are there any implications in our daily life, in our behavior?
There are enormous implications. In some cultures and traditions, there is a possibility of duality in human life. For example, I could be a very committed devotee in my place of worship, and that may happen once a year, once a month, once a week. And when I go out, I become a political man, an economic man, a military man, and I behave in that manner.
Or follow my instincts.
But Islam visualizes an integrated life for man, which means Shahada must have implications when I am doing business in marketplace, when I am involved in political activities, when I am involved in social work, when I am involved in my family. If I have declared Shahada and I am not taking care of my family, if I have declared Shahada and I am indulging myself in all kind of political coercion, if I have declared Shahada and I am involved in all kind of economic bungling, then my Shahada is no more than a superficial statement. Although in terms of law, this Shahada qualifies me to declare myself as a Muslim. But in terms of Islamic living, in terms of conscious behavior, that Shahada has no meaning for me. So Shahada is directly related with my everyday activity, where I need to bring implications of Shahada in my everyday life.
So then the spirit of Shahada has to be translated into our actions in all spheres of life.
As a matter of fact, if you look into the Quran says in Surah Baqarah, ayah number 177, that it is not virtue, it is not taqwa, it is not enough for you to turn your face east or west. But virtue is when you accept Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the only Rabb, when you feed the hungry, when you help the traveler, when you take care of those who are oppressed, when you give from what you like most to your relatives as part of your obligation, which means that Iman and Taqwa or Shahada is incomplete unless there is a social manifestation, unless there is a participation in society to uplift it, to make it more and more full of justice, to make it more and more meaningful for any human being.
So this was the relationship with the human being. How about the implications for our salah, the worship?
You see, we cannot separate Shahada from the required fara'id, obligations like salah, like siyam, like zakah, like hajj. These are essentials. In other words, Shahada will be meaningful when you are observing the minimum, these 4 obligations. But the minimum is not the maximum. This minimum must be reflected in our social action, where you take care of the poor, the needy, the one who is in debt, the person who is broke, the person who has nothing to support himself. All these things have to be done together in order to bring Shahada in our life.
So then actually this declaration of faith has a very comprehensive impact. What the outcome is going to be is in terms of a better human being.
Sure.
In terms of the relationship with others and the environment, and in terms of our contribution and responsibilities. This was very interesting to learn from you. Thank you very much. And our program now comes to an end. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.